Hey guys, yeah, it's been a while, so I honestly was not intending to once again. I know it's been a few weeks since I uploaded my video on My Hero Academia. I apologize if I haven't uploaded in that time, but that's because, I've been busy with a lot of stuff. I have a summer reading assignment, so I've been a bit preoccupied with that. In case you're wondering what book I'm reading Great Expectations by Charles Dickens. If that sounds familiar, that's because it was a very similar book that Miles Morales had to read in Into the Spider-Verse. But we're not talking about that. No, we're actually going on the other side of things. We're actually going to be talking about a DC property, but not a DC movie, a DC show. Yes, I'm going to be talking about the first season of Doom Patrol. Now that the second season of Doom Patrol has officially debuted on both DC Universe and HBO Max, I figure now is a great time to talk about the first season of Doom Patrol. Now, for some background, I don't have the DC Universe subscription service. And really the only reason why I would have wanted to use it in the first place was so that way I could watch Young Justice and maybe that Harley Quinn cartoon that was on too, because it actually kind of looked pretty decent. But anyways, so unfortunately I did not review Doom Patrol when it came out last year because, like I said before, I didn't have DC Universe, still don't have DC Universe. When HBO Max ended up launching, one of the few shows that they did include from DC Universe was Doom Patrol. And honestly, I was really thankful for that too, because I'd always wanted to watch Doom Patrol. I heard really great things about Doom Patrol. But yeah, and also for some background on the Doom Patrol, they're not a really well-known superhero team. Like, they are very lesser known than other hero teams like the Justice League or even teams like the Teen Titans. And it's funny because Beast Boy, who people associate with the Teen Titans, originally started out on the Doom Patrol. And what's also funny is that the Doom Patrol also served as inspiration for the X-Men, because Stan Lee ended up hearing about the idea of the Doom Patrol and was like, I should probably make a superhero team of my own like that. And you could definitely see a lot of similarities between the Doom Patrol and the X-Men. Their leader is a man in a wheelchair. They all have unique powers that sort of are also curses to them instead of blessings. They have to fight a group of organizations. One, the Brotherhood of Evil. The other, a Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. Okay, that one's not even subtle. But yeah, the Doom Patrol really isn't well known. And probably the most well-known thing about the Doom Patrol is the fact that they ended up inspiring the X-Men. But there have been several runs on the Doom Patrol in the past. There's the Silver Age, of course, but then there's also the much more weirder and bizarre stuff that Grant Morrison wrote sometime in the 1980s, which if this TV show drew from any inspiration on the Doom Patrol, it was the Grant Morrison era of Doom Patrol. And then, of course, there was the stuff that Gerard Way was doing with Doom Patrol with Young Animal, but we're going to not talk about that because Grant Morrison definitely seems like this is the primary influence for the show. But what is the plot of Doom Patrol? Well, here's basically what it's about. The plot of Doom Patrol is that we follow 5 individuals who've all had accidents that occurred to them at various points in time. First, we have Rita Farr, or Elasti-Woman as she's known in the comics. She was originally Elastigirl, but then Disney and Pixar ended up using that name, and it's like, well, crap, even though we were the first ones to use it, we can't be seen as ripping off that name, so we'll call her Elasti-Woman. Screw it. But Rita Farr was an actress in the 1950s. She was a very famous actress, but she also had a lot of secrets about herself. But one day when she was filming a set on like a jungle movie, she had an accident happen in which she absorbed some sort of chemical that caused her skin to like stretch out and turn her into like a puddle of goo whenever she would get stressed out. And so she really couldn't have control over how she used her power. Then in the 1960s, we have Larry Trainor, I believe is his name. Larry was a pilot for the military, but he also had a dark secret. That dark secret was the fact that he had the traditional like all-American family, like he had the wife, he had the kids, he had all that, but the problem was that Larry was also secretly gay, and then, that whole debacle ended up happening because, he has to worry about hiding who he truly is. Like I said before, the X-Men drew a lot of inspiration from the Doom Patrol. But one day when Larry's out test piloting this new ship that can go into space, he accidentally absorbed some cosmic radiation that ended up causing his skin to be severely burned and anybody to be near him to die from the radiation poisoning that he was constantly exposing. So he has to constantly be wrapped up in bandages to contain the radiation. That's why he looks a lot like the Invisible Man, because he's trying to use those bandages to make sure that no one will die from the radiation. And not only this, but Larry also has another individual within him. He has a negative spirit, as it is known, which lives inside Larry, and he can have, and it sort of just like comes out at random at this point in time, and just kind of does its own thing. It's just a being made of pure energy, but whenever it's released, Larry ends up going unconscious, but yeah. Then we have Crazy Jane. Now, Jane was an individual in which she had a very traumatic past and ended up developing 64 different personalities. And in doing so, at some point in time, she ended up gaining a serum that ended up giving each of her 64 unique personalities their own different powers. For example, there's one named Silver Tongue, and Silver Tongue's power is that whenever Silver Tongue speaks, the words actually form in physically as metal, and she can use them as projectiles. Another one is that there's a doctor in which she has the power of coercion, in which whenever she speaks, she can be able to manipulate those around her into doing what she says or to believing what she says. Then there's also Hammerhead, whose power is that she has like super strength. I don't know the name of one of them, but one of them has the ability to grow like super tall and can project fire and has like a fireball for a face. It's really bizarre. I don't know the name of that one, but that one's really cool. And then there's the most recent member of the Doom Patrol. We have Cliff Steele. Now, Cliff was actually a race car driver in the 1980s. However, he ended up getting involved in an accident that ended up killing his wife. Supposedly his daughter died, as he was told by the chief, which I'll get into in a bit. And then we have him, then it's revealed the fact that, you know, only his brain survived, his body was severely damaged. So in order to survive, he had his brain implanted into a cyborg, into a robot body. Hence, he became Robot Man. And yeah, these are all tragic, and honestly, it'd be pretty awful to all these people, because they had to go through so much in order to gain these abilities. And their leader, if you will, is a man by the name of the Chief, or Niles Calder. Niles is the one that helps keep them sheltered and protected from the outside world, and the outside world from them, because very much like the X-Men, they just don't understand the Doom Patrol. However, there's an incident that ends up occurring in which a villain known as Mr. Nobody ends up kidnapping the Chief, and they have to figure out a way how to save him. And during that time, they end up gaining a new member to the team, if you will, Cyborg. Now, Cyborg is traditionally not a member of the Doom Patrol. He's either usually a member of the Teen Titans, or in more recent years, he's shown to be a member of the Justice League. Now, the Cyborg portrayed here is that, well, he definitely does have the same backstory as the Cyborg in the comics. He was a football star, he was really great, but then there was a lab accident that ended up going down. It killed his mother. He was severely damaged and burned, and of course, his father, Silas Stone, had to basically implant these cyborg elements onto his son just for him to be able to live. And now he has to sort of learn to cope with these new powers that he has. And not only that, but Cyborg's whole thing in the Doom Patrol is that he wishes to be one of the big-time superheroes. He wants to be a member of stuff like the Justice League, but he's stuck with the Doom Patrol, obviously. And he's like, wow, out of all the possible teams, the fact that I possibly could have ended up with, I ended up with probably the most lamest people around. Now, I should also mention the cast involved with the Doom Patrol, because I think they all do a great job. There are some names that I do remember, like, for example, I remember, like, Matthew Bomer. He portrayed the voice of Negative Man, and I think he's probably my favorite character, if I'm being completely honest. Yeah, you got Diane Guerrero portraying Crazy Jane in all 64 of her unique personalities, which is very cool to see how she, not only the way she portrays each different personality, but the different slight physical changes that are made to each personality. And then, of course, there's probably one of the more recognizable names here, Brendan Fraser as Cliff Steele. Now, Brendan Fraser was actually a name that was big sometime around like maybe the late 90s, early 2000s, as he was in those mummy movies that were directed by Stephen Sommers. But then eventually, he eventually, sort of ended up teetering a bit off. And, he wasn't really in any big major projects. And this is the first really big thing Brendan Fraser has done in a long time. And he did great. Like, I think he did a great job for this. I'm forgetting who the name of the actress is who portrayed Rita Farr. I'm pretty sure when I edit the video later and I eventually put her name in the description, I think it's April something. I'm forgetting what her last name was, but I think she did a good job portraying Rita, as she very much was able to capture the mannerisms of somebody from the 1950s, like an actress from the 1950s. But I very much love the depth that they also gave to Rita too. And then, of course, there is the villain, Mr. Nobody, portrayed by Alan Tudyk. Alan Tudyk as Mr. Nobody is absolutely amazing. Now, what I absolutely love about Mr. Nobody is the fact is that he's self-aware he's in a TV show meant for a streaming service. So, like, in fact, he's actually the narrator of the first season. And then he can actually, later on, in later episodes, he actually manipulates the events of one of the episodes simply just by narrating, and it's really cool. And then, of course, there's a moment in episode 2 in which he's talking to the audience, and Chief is like, "Who are you talking to?" And it's like, "Oh, Grant Morrison fans, DC Universe subscribers, and the 3 new fans that stuck around after the donkey fart." I love how he points out the fact that it is very much inspired by the Grant Morrison era of Doom Patrol and everything like that. I really do love those little moments like that. I think it is really funny to see. And Alan Tudyk is just great. Like, Alan Tudyk is just an awesome dude. But anyways, and I should also mention the fact that Niles Calder is actually portrayed by Timothy Dalton, who actually portrayed James Bond in The Living Daylights and License to Kill. And he also ended up portraying another Neville Sinclair in probably one of the most underrated movies that I think I've seen, The Rocketeer from 1991, which, if you haven't seen The Rocketeer, it's on Disney+. It's really good. But anyways, so the cast is great. Also, I want to mention real quick the actor who portrayed Cyborg, Joivan Wade, I think is his name. But I think he did a really good job with the role that he was presented with here, too. But yeah, one thing that I really do love about Doom Patrol is that it wasn't just like a typical superhero show, and the fact that each character has their own little trauma, their own little backstory, they have their own problems that they need to deal with. Jane, of course, needs to learn how to control sort of the 64 personalities that she has inside her. Cliff has to come to terms with the fact that he's essentially just a metal man. Cyborg, of course, has to be able to, have his own thing going on. Of course, Larry has to struggle with not only keeping this being within him, but also coming to terms and accepting who he is as an individual. Then there's, of course, all these other elements that end up going on, too, for other characters. Like, we find out later on the fact, like, each of them came from different time periods, but yet almost all of them haven't aged a day. They do explain it later on in the season, although I really wish the fact that maybe they would have been planted like little hints here and there in a few other episodes. Like, maybe they could have like this little hint as to like what exactly happened, like why they haven't aged in the past like 50 or so years since they've been with Niles. Just really wish the fact that maybe they could go a little bit into that, but they at least provided an explanation at least. And not only that, but this show is also very crude. There's a lot of profanities. There is gore sometimes. There's a lot of really adult stuff in here. This is rated TVMA for a reason. And I very much the fact that occasionally here and there it will feel like a bit much. Like, it just feels like they're just doing it for the sake of doing it. But for the most part, I do think the fact that it does fit within the world and the show that they are establishing here. And, I mean, like I said before, because it is so strange, there is a lot of other characters I haven't even mentioned yet. Like, Danny the Street, for example, is a genderqueer sentient street. I'm dead serious, this is a real character, I'm not making it up. And then there's also the character of Flex Mentala, which I also was really looking forward to seeing the debut of Flex Mentallo, because I was aware of who Flex Mentallo was before the Doom Patrol series. I think I first heard of him when I watched this YouTube channel called It's Super Effective, if I remember correctly. But I remember It's Super Effective mentioned Flex Mentallo, and I'm like, who's Flex Mentallo? I looked it up. Flex Mentallo is a hero in which he has the ability to literally manipulate reality itself just by flexing his muscles. That is so weird and yet so cool at the same time. And of course, probably one of my favorite scenes is in episode 14 when they're all trying to find Niles and they're on Danny the street and Flex is with them, and it's like, okay, so I'm gonna flex a muscle and hopefully I'll be able to get you to where Niles is. He flexes it, nothing happens, and then All By Myself begins to play in the background, and then everybody just starts climaxing except for Cliff, because he's a robot and can't feel anything, and even Danny the street even begins to feel it too. And then after it's all over, it's like, oh, I'm so sorry, I accidentally flexed the wrong muscle. He gives it pretty much the scientific name as to what exactly the muscles are. But it's really funny because Cliff is like, he's just reacting to all this, and Flex is like, I think I flexed the wrong muscle. And he's like, yeah, no crap, dummy. He didn't actually say it, he used the other word, but obviously can't swear because, one thing, my parents would be really upset, and Copo would also probably get on my back about it, so I'm not going to do that. But yeah, it is very weird, and it is a good example to show how weird this show is, but also how funny it is too. There's a lot of really, really funny elements to the show. And not only that, but the villains that they do encounter actually sort of do tie in further to each of the characters in their own way or another. Except for a weird cult that ends up showing up sometime around episode 3 or 4, and the D creator ended up showing up. That was really bizarre. That came out a bit out of nowhere. And then there's a character named Kipling, in which he is a British sorcerer that smokes cigars, deals with magic and all the other stuff, and it's like, huh. Very much feel like the fact that John Constantine probably should have been involved in this, but that's just me. And that's probably because the reason why they couldn't use him is because he's off doing his own thing on Legends of Tomorrow, and Matt Ryan, of course, is killing it as John Constantine, or Constantine, because I'm pretty sure during the Hellblazer comics, somebody actually says Constantine and says T-E-E-N, and no, he's like, no, it's Constantine, like T-I-N-E. They always say Constantine, but it's Constantine. But anyways, but I'm just gonna say John Constantine just for the simpleness of it, and that's just what everybody else says. But yeah, it overall, Doom Patrol is a really great series. I love how the fact that it does explore the characters. It's not just superhero action all the time. It very much does delve into these characters and explore how broken they are as people and how they sort of learn to move on as these individuals. Really love the cast, how they all give their A game. The budget definitely helps. There are action sequences, of course, but when they do have them off, they really do a good job with the budget that they are given. It definitely is a bit fun. It definitely does have its humorous moments. It is raunchy, but it also has its heartfelt and sincere moments. Like, for example, Cliff sort of develops a father-daughter relationship with Jane, and even eventually they point out, it's like, why are you trying to make me the surrogate for your daughter like that? But eventually they do bond closer as people. And we do eventually get more backstory to all the characters as the series goes on. We get a little bit more depth as to how exactly they get their powers and how Niles ends up getting tied into all this. Which I'm not going to reveal because I do think the fact that you should check out the show. Alan Tudyk is amazing as Mr. Nobody. I feel like he was an amazing villain, and he was like, and I also love the moment that he particularly had at the end of episode 13. He's like, finally, after 13 pointlessly meandering melodramatic bullcrap, we can finally get to what this show was always meant to be. A superhero show. And the way he sells it is just absolutely great because he's wearing a Doom Patrol hat, he's wearing a Doom Patrol t-shirt, he's right next to the poster. It's absolutely amazing, and yeah, it is definitely kind of cool about how, even though it does have superheroes in it, they do sort of very much play in the fact that they are exploring how these people are all broken in the one way, shape, or form, and how they do move on with their lives. The only really critique that I can give is that sometimes the weirdness does have a reason to why it's weird, but there will be some moments in which it will just be weird for the sake of being weird. And then, of course, there's also, moments that can be a bit raunchy and, have those, like, really adult moments for the sake of them being adult. But I think those moments are very rare and few and far between. And overall, I'm going to get the first season Doom Patrol a 9 out of 10. I think it's a fantastic series. I'm really enjoying season 2, by the way. I think it's really good. But yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed the video about me just talking about Doom Patrol. I do think the fact that it is a good series and more people should check it out. But yeah, so yeah, hope you guys enjoyed the video. I have no idea what I'm planning on reviewing next. However, I did, with the talk of The Last of Us Part 2, I was able to order the first Last of Us game, so you might see a review on that, potentially, sometime in the next week or so. You may want to give it, it probably might take another 2 weeks because I'm not expecting it to arrive. At the time of recording this, it's not expected to arrive until sometime next week, and it takes me a while to finish video games because I have to share the console with my younger siblings, so I kind of have to, worry about that. But I will get a Last of Us review out as soon as possible, and when the time comes, I will review Part 2. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Make sure the fact that you're subscribed, and in case you want to get all notifications, just click the little notification bell. Make sure to like this video, and comment down below anything that you'd be interested in having me review as well, because I'm happy to take suggestions, but as long as it's nothing, as long as you're trying to actually have like a serious recommendation for me in the comment section, and you're actually genuinely sincere and honest with your comment, instead of just just trying to be there just for the sake of hate speech, feel free to comment down below, and if you don't do anything that I just said, I will probably delete your comment. This is just a little PSA for all the hate comments that people might be thinking of putting on my videos. Hope you guys enjoyed this video, and as always, stay gold.